Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Cozy Mystery Mingle. So excited because we have Ellen Byron here. Hey, Ellen.
Hey, hi. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And fun fact, we're talking today about a new series with a new pen name. But let's just back up. Give everyone like a little intro about who you are, what you do, where you're at.
Yes, I'm a sitcom writer turned mystery writer, and my first series was the Cajun Country Mysteries, and I also have the Vintage Cookbook Mysteries, which both of those I write as Ellen Byron, and then I have my Catering Hall Mysteries, and that I write as Maria DiRico, and that is Maria DiRico is my late nonna's maiden name. And it's set in Queens, where my family, in Astoria, Queens, where all the Italian relatives who came over pre and post war to New York set up shop. Basically, they bought little two-family houses and opened Italian delis. And Nonna was a seamstress, and she crocheted and made little rosettes for tops of hats. And they survived the Depression. And a couple of cousins ran catering halls in Queens, and that's what inspired the series. So, and I used my Nonna's name as my pen name. Oh, and I should also explain that I will have launching a brand new series in July 23rd called the Golden Motel Mysteries. The first one is called A Very Woodsy Murder, and that series is set in California.
Oh,
So I'm
very
excited about
cool.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is going to be a very authentic book, all of
Yes.
your experience.
Yes, yes. The catering hall, the fifth book, Witless Protection Program, just launched. Geez, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I think, yeah, 2 weeks ago, this
Mhm.
coming Tuesday, and 1 week ago, this past Tuesday. And it was really, it was like a blast to write. And the thing is, like, in addition to the fact that my family like owned and ran some catering halls in Queens, I worked for Martha Stewart. When she was
Oh,
first starting
wow.
out, and I was a cater waiter. And one day, so I worked these parties, off and on. Like, I mostly on the weekends, I'd go up to Connecticut or wherever she was doing a party, or the Upper East Side. She did a lot of. In fact, if anyone has an original copy of Entertaining, her first book, if you look on page 29, we're all in the kitchen at the Cooper Hewitt Museum on the Upper East Side of New York, and I'm standing right next to Martha, and I think I'm holding a tray of hors d'oeuvres, if I remember.
Wow,
Um,
very cool.
so it's funny, when I was writing the first book in the Catering Hall Mysteries series, which was called Here Comes the Body. I was like, my protagonist, Mia Karina, she had to do an off-site catering event, and I was like, oh my gosh! And then I just started remembering and recalling, like, I would go up to Turkey Hill Drive in Westport. That's where Martha's house, her famous, kind of farmhouse was. And we do a lot of prep there, but then we take it all down to New York and finish there. So I literally called back, some of these old memories I had of working in the offsite events with Martha, and channeled them into the book and into the series.
Wow. And is there a Martha Stewart like character inside of here?
There is not, actually, which is funny because no, there isn't. But then also, there's, in the book that comes before this, Four Parties and a Funeral. There was actually a reality show pilot is filming in Astoria, the Dons of Ditmars Boulevard, and a lot of the Gavon guys that and Dons and Donettes that Mia, my protagonist, knows are working on it, and she ends up working a little bit as getting hired to do some craft services for the production. So I got to use, like, a lot of my TV experience. When you have craft services on a set, I got to channel it into that book. So it's been fun
Nice.
writing the series and channeling aspects of my own life into aspects of the books.
For sure. Well, let's talk about this book. Who gets killed? What's happening?
The
Who's the main
Witless Protection Program.
yeah.
What's really, I had so much fun writing this book. It was just like the culmination of everything. And in the beginning of the series, I set up that Mia, her husband who cheated on her, she was living in Miami. You don't see this. She moves. The series opens with Mia moving back to Astoria, and what happened is that her husband disappeared in Miami, and with a cocktail waitress at the restaurant where he managed, and Mia was considered a person of interest in his disappearance. And then the boat showed up with her body in it, but he was gone, and so then he was declared, presumed dead, and she got to start life again. But and leave Miami, come back to New York. But the thing is, like, the question always hung over, the books, like, what Adam Grosso, that was his name. Where was he? What happened to him? And I'm not giving anything away to say that in this book, I finally bring him back. And so people get to meet him. And of course, what happens is, and I am giving something a little away, but it's fun. It's okay. It's not like a huge surprise that, he shows up just when Mia gets engaged to someone else. And so you can imagine the complications of when, your living husband, because they're not divorced, shows up as you're on the verge to marry someone else. Not only that, he wants you back. So, and then he dies. And so everyone around you is a potential suspect, including you. So there's a lot going on there. And then meanwhile, Mia's nonna, who's inspired by my own nonna and my mom a little, is like feisty Italian lady, this feisty little Italian lady who's kind of a hoot. She's been like, dabbling with day trading, unbeknownst to anyone. And she makes enough to buy this house that a recluse on the street lived in. And no one's been in it. The rule is she had to buy it sight, without stepping foot inside. And so she buys it as a gift to Mia and Shane, Mia's fiance. So they finally go inside, and it turns out the man who was a recluse and no one knew was a cartoonist, was an animator named Dan Fee, and he created a character called Circus Man. And so now his fans, who are, I was thinking of Stan Lee,
Yeah.
and the
Right.
Marvel universe. And so now his fans are legendary in his fan groups, and they come out and they want to have it declared a national landmark. And so all that is going on while, and the place is like crazy that, there are murals he's done. And so all that is going on at the same time as Mia's, life is being upended. So, and then I whenever I have like a B story like that, I do my best to integrate the A and B stories. So,
Mhm.
so I found a way to do that. I was pretty proud of myself, I have to say.
Very cool.
So, and it
Yeah.
culminates, I think the last chapter in that book may be the most fun thing I ever wrote. Because, it's just craziness, but so much fun. And I think readers are really getting a kick out of it. I just let myself go and I wrote to my agent, excuse me, hold on.
Mhm.
Sorry. I said, I feel like this book is a screenplay masquerading as a book. And because it's so visual in my head. I mean, I could just see it all, being acted out and being filmed.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, it sounds so zany and crazy and tons
It
of
is.
adventure. Would you classify this as a classic cozy or more just like a straight general contemporary mystery?
I think it's really a classic cozy, like classic humorous cozy.
Okay.
It's both also, mystery. I mean, it's like, where is the line? I mean, I have recipes, Italian recipes in the book. So it kind of falls on the category of culinary cozies, but I'm not like a cook myself. It
Mhm.
just seemed if you're writing a catering hall mystery, you kind of have to put recipes in.
Right.
Um, and but it's yeah, so it's like definitely got cozy. It's definitely very cozy. I mean, there's no gratuitous sex or violence or bad language simply because I'm terrible at writing those. I'm not good at writing any of them. I mean, I've said before that, like, I'll buy books on how to write sex and then I can't read them. I'm
Mhm.
like a 5-year-old. Um, but it's kind of caperesque too,
Yes.
because when I was writing the book, I had to send Mia. She and Shane decide they have to go down to Miami to do, some investigating. And then I realized, okay, wait a second, you can go from New York to Miami, and then
Mhm.
you can go to Miami to LA because something leads them to LA, and then you can go back to New York, and you actually can do that all in 24 hours.
Oh,
So it's really, yeah, because it's like, 2.5, 3 hours to fly to Miami if you get an early
yeah.
morning flight. Then you get a flight to, like a 6 p.m. flight. So you're in Miami a few hours.
Mhm.
You get like a 6 o'clock flight to LA or 7 o'clock, and you're there, 3 hours early or whatever it is. And then you get a red eye back to New York. So,
Yeah, you could.
so, so it's got like caper elements in it, which is really fun,
Hmm.
you know. And then the end is just the last chapter, which is, you know, everything's been solved, but there's other stuff going on, and it's just like just balls out.
Awesome. And so before the call, Ellen, or before we went live, Ellen and I discovered that we both lived on the Upper West Side in Manhattan. But this book is set in Queens. So let's talk a little bit about your experience with Queens. What do you love? What do you hate?
Yeah, I was originally born in Forest Hills, and my family lived in Little Neck, which is right next to Great Neck, and it's on the island. But Little Neck is actually still part of Queens, and Great Neck is its own thing. And so we lived there till I was about 10. But the Italian side, the my dad was Jewish, my mom was Italian, and literally born there. And so the Jewish family lived out on the island, but the Italian family for many years lived in Astoria. And even as they started to migrate to either, most of them moved to, like, a lot of them moved to to Jersey, although other relatives moved out to the island too. So eventually there was a migration out of Astoria. But sorry, I'm getting over a bug. But the thing is, despite the migration, the family events, you know, still happened in Astoria, like, you know, because of the catering halls that we were connected to, the Astoria Grand Bay Marina on, you know, which was on Flushing Bay, and then Astoria Manor, which was in the heart of Astoria, and then the funeral homes, you know, there's when relatives passed, there was still relatives, the Italian relatives, a lot of them bought buildings. They you know they didn't have, like, they were very street smart, in that they came over from Italy, and they didn't necessarily have a high education, but, you know, they figured out, like, real estate in New York. And, well, you know, real estate you bought in like 1960s in Astoria is now, or in, you know, Long Island City, is now worth a fortune, because that area has been so gentrified. But I always have such fond memories. Uh, you know, I'm going, in fact, of just places I went and stuff. And was it last year I actually did a book signing at Astoria Bookshop, and I walked the walk. I used to talk, you know, walk. I get off the subway and walk to my nonna's place, and
Mhm.
you know, I did that walk, and I stopped at the bakery where we did all our family baking, you know, bought our baked goods, and, you know, it's just like got a very special place in my heart. In fact, I bought a, like, I don't really wear baseball caps, but bought one that said Astoria Warrior.
Oh,
So
nice.
I just thought, you
Queens
know,
pride.
it's very much ingrained in me.
All right. So let's talk about the husband, Adam, who died. So he's like a philandering grifter. Now, did Mia know this when she married him? Like, or is she a con him
No,
herself?
she didn't. It was a very impulsive, you know, she was like 25. You know, there's a lot of pressure on, I think it's kind of better now, but, you know,
Mhm.
part of me is like, I'm writing a little, you know, there still is I think, a pressure on, like, Italian girls to marry.
Mhm.
You know, and also you don't really get, you know, it's better, it's certainly better now than when I was growing up. But when I was growing up, you know, your cousins, I mean, they lived at home until they got married, and then even if they had kids out of wedlock, they still lived at home. And so, you know, I think Mia was feeling a little of that pressure, even though, you know, she's a current woman. And, you know, even now some of my cousins, you know, they get married, you know, in the younger, in their 20s,
Mhm.
you know, than me, who's, it was an old bag when I got married. But you know, so I she just kind of, like, this guy wooed her and came on strong, and it was a very whirlwind relationship, and married, and they went to Miami, and then it's like, you know, the bottom fell out. It was just like she just really regretted it, and made her really relationship shy for a long time. You know, and of course, in the early books, there's a hint of a possible romance. With her father's a recovering, I call him a recovering gangster. He's like trying to, you know, they're running the catering. The catering hall is owned by a mobster family, but, you know, the mob actually has to, and they do run legitimate businesses, and so they're trying to run this as they're running it as much as possible as a legitimate business. And so, you know, and there's a hint, though, that Mia might get involved with the son of the you know, Don, the head of the family, with a capital F. But as I was writing it, it was like, I thought, you know, this is getting kind of boring. It's going to be boring to hook them up. So I actually wrote away from that in the second book, and wrote in a really fun love interest. I just had this vision of an absolutely drop dead gorgeous guy who hated being gorgeous, and just like, just hated it. It was this cross to bear. And he had like was a male model for a while, and he had this kind of reckless life in Italy, and where but he doesn't want any of that. He wants to work in this business, and he shows up at the end, and there's like, Mia and her coworkers are like, oh my god, and he's like, hey, hashtag me too goes both ways, ladies. He hates being just identified as a spectacularly handsome man. So it just seemed like a really fun character to write.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
So what kind of marks did he have? Like, what kind of grifter was Adam? Like, who did he go after?
he was a dum dum. He's like, he got into it with like, he was trying to like, there were gangs down in Florida, and he got on the wrong side of them. And that's when he got, ended up in this boat and, and trying to escape them, and stealing stuff that didn't belong to him, like illegal cigars from trying to like outsmart the smart people. And it got him to trouble, and he ends up having to go on the lam and assume a fake identity. And the thing is, I don't know if I probably shouldn't, well, I'll give it, what the hell, it's like, that's why he's called the Witless Protection Program, because she assumes he leads everyone to believe he's in the Witness Protection Program. But is he? Is he? Maybe,
Now,
maybe not.
he's also hilarious. Did she have proof that he cheated on her? Like, were they about to get divorced before he disappeared?
Oh, she was absolutely going to, and that's why, she had. I mean, I don't go into the detail about it, but she knew he was cheating on her, and everyone knew it. And she had left him, and she was going to like start divorce proceedings, and then he disappeared with a mistress, and so that made her a very, And again, that's all backstory. We only hear about it in a paragraph or so, But she's so mad at herself for making such a stupid decision, and for going with her impulse, that it makes her gun shy of relationships in the beginning.
All right.
So, and she has to
But
work through that to get to Shane.
and so Shane, is he kind of like the opposite? Because that happens sometimes, right?
Yes, although Shane does have in Four Parties and a Funeral, I don't want to go into detail, but Mia discovers he's had a checkered past, and she
Mhm.
discovers a secret he's hiding from her and trying to repair, and not having much luck doing so, so she has to step in and help out.
Got it.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
But
So
they're
it's
very
like,
much in love. And
oh yes, and
okay.
it's fun to write like flawed people who like did a lot of stuff impulsively without thinking in their 20s, like we all do, and are
Mhm.
trying to like, you know, make up for it and be more adult and, functional in their 30s.
All
So
right. And like, how serious is this relation? Like, is he about to propose, or is this just like kind of a
the
crush?
book starts, there's again, I had a great time writing the opening chapter because Mia's sure he's going to propose. And then she's so mad at herself for like, why am I now? She's an independent woman. She's running this business basically with her father, doing the bulk of it. Yet she's waiting for a proposal. And the first scene, sorry,
Okay.
the first scene, the first chapter, the beginning of the first chapter is her like on tenterhooks, like, is it coming now? And so I wrote to all those, those like tropes, like a champagne is delivered and something's sparkling and something's floating, but it's not a ring, and a special dessert is delivered. It's a chocolate box, and she opens it and it's filled with mousse, So I wrote to all those, and then I actually, then you get to the fun part where he actually does propose.
Cool. And so Bellevue Banquet Manor. So is Mia's family rich? Like, they own their own venue, they do catering.
Well, not real. I mean, they don't own it.
Oh,
Donnie Boldano, who's the head of the family, he owns it. And Bellevue, I played with the play on words of like, as New Yorkers know, Bellevue is a psychiatric hospital in New York.
mhm.
So that's a little in joke for New Yorkers. This place
Oh,
is called
Bellevue. Yeah, I
Bellevue.
didn't get
So,
that.
um, but no, I mean they're comfortable, but it's always this. I mean, it's a hard life, like making, running these events, and while the events are wonderful, they're also very stressful because people are, it's great moments in people's lives, but also they're fraught with, fraught with conflict. Like, I interviewed a mom I knew through middle school. Her family owned and ran a catering facility here in Los Angeles, in Burbank, and so I spent a day with, a couple of hours with her. And when she brought up something that I wrote into the first book, she said, sometimes the hardest person to deal with isn't like the bride or the mother of the bride; it's the mother of the groom,
Mm.
because they don't have really anything to do. And so I actually thought, oh my gosh, I've never heard that, so interesting. So I wrote a character like a groom's mother Zilla, instead of a bridezilla, it was like,
Right.
a bridegroom mother, whatever I wrote. So I wrote that in and made that the difficult person. So it was fun, and then at one point she's working, they were planning a sweet 16 for this sweet girl, and just this poor girl is dealing with so much, the pressure of being a teenager and a sweet 16, and everyone's trying to one up each other, and Mia feels so bad for her, and they keep trying to like make it the best event possible, while you're dealing with these really fun events, they're also incredibly stressful.
Mhm.
They have a comfortable life, but
Right.
they're not rich by any
Got it.
means.
And is Mia a chef? And is she a good one or bad
No,
one? No.
she's not a chef. She is an event planner. She's the
Ah.
senior event planner at the catering hall. So she's the person who takes your hand and guides you through it, prices everything, make sure you get what you want. With Italian weddings, they have favors. I don't know if,
Mhm.
the favor was a big deal. So she'll help find people, the perfect favor for their wedding. Pull out all the stops, or if someone wants to arrive at their wedding by boat, she'll find the boat, or by carriage. So, and competing with other event venues around the neighborhood to try to, one up them.
Got it. All right. Oh, and I forgot to ask. So, is this like a high end, only the super wealthy can afford Bellevue, or is it middle
Oh,
class?
it's middle class. It's definitely middle class. It's my, it's inspired, like I said, by my family, and
Mhm.
it's a very, they'll do all range of events. Like they do some high, she manages to convince some high end people to use her.
Mhm.
But it's really a variety of events, and all walks of life. And a lot of times, oh shoot, hold on. I never figured out how to turn off my phone, and it's of
That's
course
okay.
a spammer. So hold on, turn it off. There we go. Um, uh, a lot of times with these families, the what would be a college fund in another family is a wedding fund for a family, and so
Mhm.
they'll spend like buckets of money to, the Italian saying bella figura, like trying to
Mhm.
look your best for people. um but she'll also try to find ways to save them money and stuff. And but I'll tell you a funny story about the four weddings and the four parties and a funeral
Mhm.
book that, in my head, I had it reversed, and for some reason I thought it was four funerals and a party at some point. And so I reached the end of the book and I realized, oh no, I don't have four funerals. So I had a family doing, a funeral for their kids' goldfish, three goldfish. So I go, yes, and it tied into a beautiful speech, that Shane gives Mia, and I was so proud of myself. And then I realized, wait a minute, I have to I backed up my own title backwards, but I kept it all because
Yeah.
it worked.
And that's okay. They're goldfish.
Yeah, exactly. So, so it was actually worked out well. But I love writing the series. It's very personal to me, and I really just pulled out all the stops for this book for the Witless Protection Program.
Cool. And so, if people have just discovered you, let's talk about your other series, The
Yes.
Golden Motel, Cajun Country, and Vintage Cookbook. Can you give everyone
Yes.
kind of a rundown on each of those things?
Yes, the Cajun Country Mysteries, books 1 through 7, are take place at a former plantation owned by a family that's been turned into a bed and breakfast in Cajun Country in a little town
Mhm.
called Pelican, Louisiana, which is just north of New Orleans in Cajun Country, and it's very bucolic and lovely. And my protagonist Mia is an artist who comes home to help her family run the B&B, and it's got recipes because it's I was making myself hungry. So I figured if I'm writing about, Cajun food and Creole food, people are going to start wanting recipes. So I got on that track. The Vintage Cookbook Mysteries are set in New Orleans. I went to school at Tulane University, and I really fell in love with New Orleans and Cajun country. And so that's inspired a lot of my work and inspired some of my plays and various other things. And I collect vintage cook. I got hooked on collecting vintage cookbooks. And so I thought, oh, that would be like a great premise for a series. And then I thought, well, how do I tie to New Orleans? And New Orleans has three famous female restaurateurs. And I say restaurateurs and not chefs because only one of them is an actual chef. And those were Ella Brennan of Commander's Palace and Brennan's, and mostly Commander's Palace. Then Ruth Reichel, not Reichel, Ruth Ferkel, who Ruth's Chris Steakhouse.
Oh
And the
yeah.
reason it's called Ruth's Chris Steakhouse is because she bought a steakhouse, and part of the contract said she had to keep the name Chris Steakhouse. So she put her name in front of it. I know. I discovered. And then Leah Chase of Dookie Chase, and Leah Chase, and which is a high end culinary black owned restaurant. And Leah Chase was the only actual chef among them. So I created the Bon V Culinary House Museum. I took a Garden District mansion and turned it into a culinary house museum. And my protagonist, Ricky, runs the bookshop, runs this gift store that sells vintage cookbooks and kitchenware. And she was born in New Orleans and abandoned at birth at Charity Hospital. So now she's come back after living in LA, and she's trying to find the story of her birth. And then the Golden Motel Mysteries, which will start with a very woodsy murder and come out in July, is very much inspired again by my life. That my character, the protagonist, Dee, to that, is a burned out sitcom writer, just like me.
Cool.
Although I'm a little less, I was more like I'm ready for a break. But anyway, she impulsively, with her best friend, who also happens to be a very short-lived first husband, buys a motel in Gold Rush Country, and so she has a real, so they're suddenly buying this vintage, retro motel in the middle of the woods, and it's kind of like City Girl suddenly is like thrust into this world, and part of it is inspired by when I came to California the first time in 1975. My great aunt took me to Columbia State Historic Park, and I fell in love with it. It's this historic park that's basically an old miners' village that's been kept intact, and people dress in pioneer garb and stuff, and so it's the town next to where not Mia Dee's motel is. Her little vintage retro motel is in Found Gold, and then this kind of tourist trappy town is Gold's Gone, because when miners found gold, they left to spend it. So found gold is really tiny, but gold's gone. They had no choice, so it stayed intact, and now it's thriving. So it's been a lot of fun to write.
Awesome. And you know, I wonder if we were in New Orleans at the same time. My best friend went to med school at Tulane. So I went
Oh
to
wow!
Mardi Gras, I think like 6 years in a row.
Oh wow! That's more than I did.
Yeah,
I had
all
3 years
Mardi
for
Gras now.
me. Yeah, I know. Three and Jazz Fest. Did you do Jazz Fest?
Never did Jazz Fest, just Mardi Gras.
Oh,
For sure.
Jazz Fest is fabulous. I love Jazz Fest. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, that's fun. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually am thinking about going back for Mardi Gras the next year. I've just had this urge.
Oh, really?
So,
I don't know if I would enjoy it as like an older adult now. I
well,
feel like it'll be fun as
I
a kid,
know the
but
parades though are so much. I mean, I actually the last 2 years I've been in New Orleans for. I keep looking. I hope I'm looking at the right place.
yeah.
Around Halloween, so I was there for Crew of Boo, which is a parade they now do for Halloween, which is like a Mardi Gras
Oh,
parade,
huh.
and so it was so much fun. Sorry, coughing again. And so much fun at Crew of Boo. It's like, oh, I think I want to do this for Mardi Gras. So, and I think if I get, I'm contracted for two more vintage cookbook mysteries through Severn House, and the third one, which is the first of the two, will come out in September, and then the fourth one will be probably set around Christmas. But if I get a fifth one, I'd like to do Mardi Gras. So it'd be
Yeah, that would be
fun
great
to go back and relive it.
for sure. So yeah, so let's talk about what are your writing plans for 2024?
Oh, I'm working on the first draft, or revising the first draft of the second Golden Motel mystery.
Mhm.
I don't have an exact name for it yet, but so that's what I'm doing. And then I just finished, the third vintage cookbook, and so I'll be doing. the fourth, I have to tackle the next books in both those series. So that's what I'll be working on in between promoting the upcoming books. So it's a lot. I'll be around. I'll be traveling a lot.
Sure. Oh, you're going to travel. You're actually going
Well,
to.
I'm going to do Left Coast and the conventions,
Okay.
Left Coast and Malice and BoucherCon, and then also a couple of other things and maybe some books, book events. I'll definitely be doing book events. So
Cool.
it's a
And
lot.
well, so where can readers find you if they want to connect?
They can find me at ellenbyron.com
Mhm.
and also mariadirico.com. But, Ellen Byron actually is tied to Maria DiRico, so you can do both. And also, I'm on Facebook as Ellen Byron Maria DiRico and on Instagram as Ellen Byron Maria DiRico. I'm not really doing, the other social media things now. I think you have to kind of like rein it in because, I try to respond to everyone who responds to my stuff and it gets a little overwhelming.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, cool. And do you have a newsletter that you send out?
yeah. Oh, I
Okay.
love doing my newsletter. And that you can sign up for that at ellenbyron.com. And I try to do contests there. And I do what I call, I always have a little thing I call on a personal note. And
Mhm.
this started when in 2018, when we took our daughter, she ended up going to Loyola, New Orleans, which was right next to Tulane. And I wrote a little bit about dropping her off at school. And people really responded to sharing, part of my personal life.
Yeah,
So I really love doing, on a personal note and sharing a little of that, my life with people and, connecting with readers.
very
So,
cool.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, I will leave all of your information in the description or the show notes if you're listening to this on the podcast. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you for putting up with my coughing.
Oh, yeah. If you're watching this, you should know that she is so dedicated to her fans that she is sick, but she showed up here today. Yeah.
So thanks.
All
Here's
right.
hoping that x-ray comes back clear.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm
Bye,
sure it is. I
everyone.
think it's just a bad cold.
Yeah.
So thanks,
All right.
Lisa.